Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world, dear listeners. This is episode 20 of The Power of You. Myself and Bill Harvey are so excited to be back with you all today. So, good afternoon, Bill. How are things on your side of the pond?
It's wonderful. It was 80 degrees yesterday. It's 40 degrees today. It's typical Northeast time of year.
The spring is coming soon. I feel it. Hopefully it's coming for everybody. So wherever you are in the world, we hope that the new season is rolling around and you're starting to feel the energy return to your body after a long winter. So we're keen to get going today and super excited about the topic as always. So what I wanted to speak about today, Bill, was this balance between, as we're on our growth process, that there is different elements to that, in that we need to, at times, right, take the time to look inward, focus on our thoughts, focus on our beliefs, focus on our internal world, right? And then on the other end, right, there is like the action taking, and right, at the action taking, the seeds that we need to plant, the things that we need to ground into our physical realities. And I wanted to bring this up today because I think we can be guilty, or people can be guilty of, and I know for me, certainly, we can spend our time either at one or the other end of the spectrum, right? It can be hustle, like it's all about go, action taking, and not enough stop and reflection and integration time. Or if you're, on the other end of the spectrum, it can be like, oh, well, I'm just going to spend all my time manifesting and thinking things into existence. And so today I wanted to talk about bridging those two worlds, because I believe both are super important, and how this very existence is almost a co-collaboration with both our internal worlds and the external. So I wanted to, give that idea or concept that our existence is a co-collaboration some space today to talk about that and hear your perspectives, and hopefully we can help others find a balance that is right for them.
Well, it sounds like there's two great ideas here, the balance idea, inner and outer worlds, and also the co-creation with the universe of our lives. But let's start with the balance.
Mm-hmm.
You might guess, we probably might never know for sure, but we might take a guess that this idea of weekends and weekdays wasn't entirely accidental, that we had some intuition, collectively, that we needed a break away from the outside world for 1 or 2 days a week at least, in order to assimilate what had happened during that period of intense action. So it's kind of built into our culture everywhere in the world, because it's a basic need, and we've subconsciously recognized it and arranged for it. Similarly, on a daily basis, I always prescribe like at least 20 minutes a day of alone time where you can't be interrupted, you don't have any distractions in the environment, and you're going to take a mini weekend in 20 minutes and try to figure out, or initially not try to figure out anything, but just wait to see where the mind goes, to understand, to observe oneself, to see, what am I thinking about right now? Why am I thinking about that? Oh, it's related to this report that's due. Oh, so I'm very focused on that report, right? What's the importance of it? What's going to happen either upward or downward, depending on my performance in that report? How does that relate to my goals? What have I done recently that builds up towards this moment? however the mind goes in that 20 minutes is going to reveal to us where our hearts are at, what's got us engaged and perhaps excessively attached to outcomes, perhaps without realizing it. When we're out in the world in action with the outside world, it's easy for our self-mastery to slip because we're so busy with the outside world, we don't notice that we're getting attached to something, or something is putting us into a negative mode and we don't notice it. So that can happen when we're out externally. Everything is focused externally. It's good to use even bathroom breaks. It's not 20 minutes, but it gives you a couple of minutes to try to, wow, am I okay? Is everything okay? Or am I slipping? Have I forgotten my stoicism, my invulnerability, my lack of attachment to outcomes? Do I remember my mission? Do I have everything in perspective? Then you go back out of the bathroom and you've really achieved a lot more than a normal bathroom break from, pure physical biology. But mental biology is also taking a vacation for a moment from the outside world to make sure the inside world is okay, is operating at a high level. So when you go back in the outside world, you'll be even more effective.
Yeah, and it sounds like that you've got this art down in terms of being able to execute, take action, and do, but also create these pauses for reflection, integration, and connecting with your inner world. And you shared that society, the way we have structured it, whoever decided however many years ago that we would work, or people would work, there'd be working days from Monday to Friday and then have a weekend, Saturday to Sunday. You've shared that was done intentionally because somewhere along the line we knew that we needed this space and time for integration, reflection, and downtime. But I think in today's world, a challenge is that while people, if they do work on Monday to Friday, they might work shift work, who knows? But if they do work on Monday to Friday, or whatever their work schedule is like, when they do have this time off, it seems that we're in this world that even that time is crammed, filled with like sports, activity, socializing, whatever it is, birthday parties, different activities just fill the calendar. And while we might be technically off work, or even, when people take vacations, these vacations, because people feel that they're so limited and so rare, want to cram as much as possible into just a few days. That I know, with my mum coming to visit me here just past weekend, she wanted to see everything because she was only here for a few days. So I think that while society has perhaps been set up to have this time for reflection and integration, we don't tend to use it so much for that, but instead to do more. And I wanted to understand, I guess, what impact you think that that's having, because I don't believe as many of us are connecting with our internal world as we should. And there is a lot more focus on this doing, hustle. So yeah, what impact do you feel that this busyness of our everyday lives, even in our downtime, is having on individuals?
I think it's causing degree of mass mental illness, that it's a pandemic. I call it acceleritis. And it's gotten to the point where we never think about our lives. We never think strategically about our lives. We never think about our dreams, our visions, the desired end state, what our unique gifts are, what we're on the planet to do. Do I have a purpose and mission? All of that is it's too complicated. I haven't got time to think about that stuff. I got this stuff I got to do, and I'll never I'll never get around to that stuff. So, what should I do? Well, fit in. That's what I'll fit in. Everybody's in green. I'll be in green. Everybody wants money. I'll want money. Whatever fits in, I should be safe in the herd as long as I'm like everybody else. If I'm not like everybody else, I'm exposed. I'm vulnerable. I'm defenseless. I won't belong. I won't be protected. So just go along with it. So everybody is massively running like lemmings over this cliff here. Here I come. I'm joining. Whee! Over the cliff. It's madness. It's truly not sanity. It isn't sanity. In Freud's time, he, things were slower. He was kind of, a member of aristocracy in a sense. We still had the ancient class distinctions. There wasn't so much of a middle class at that point. So he was in, upper crust society. Those were the people he met. They were all cultured. They had lives of leisure. They had time to think and reflect and philosophize and all of that stuff. So he didn't see this coming. He saw, people complained about neuroses that were mostly related to not being able to have sex with every other person that was attractive. That he thought that was the only mental problem we needed to deal with. And we should be so lucky. We're in much worse straits than that. If he was around now, he wouldn't know where to start.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's this like kind of culture of hustle and busyness is really having an impact on, everybody's like mental health and overall well-being, and then also happiness and overall satisfaction of life. And I think, you kind of mentioned it's a pandemic, and it kind of prompted me to think about the pandemic for a moment, because I think sometimes this busyness and this hustle serves as a distraction for a lot of us, because I think that we prefer to be busy because actually if we were to take time to slow down, we would have to reflect and spend time in our inner world. And actually that's so uncomfortable for so many of us that we will do anything and everything to avoid that, right? So in some cases, we feed this hustle culture, we feed the busyness because there is a fear of like, okay, well, if I look within, what am I going to find? And when you said the word pandemic, again, it prompted me to think of the pandemic itself. And that was a time, like a very, unique time in life where the outside world really did quieten. And like, we didn't have all the obligations. We didn't need to be here, there, or everywhere. And actually, we were we were advised against doing any of that, right? So we had this strange period of time where we were all inward and we didn't have to rush here, there, and everywhere. And it did force kind of this inward reflection time for many. And again, I've shared that for a lot of us, that process can be uncomfortable. And I know at the time, there were so many people being like, oh my God, I can't take this. My mental health is awful. And then, right. And while that started like that for some, for others, it actually became an intense period of growth, right? Because even while a lot was not happening outside of us, a lot was changing within, and we focused more on our internal worlds. And I think that, and this is why I wanted to talk about the balance of the two, because, obviously by the end of the pandemic, everyone was like, oh my God, let me out. I need to take some action. I need to ground myself in the external world. But that period, I know for me personally anyway, was a huge catalyst for my own growth and evolution and finding out, more about myself, focusing on the things that I could control, you know, like where I spend my time, my energy. And ultimately that brought me, strangely, well, I know a lot of people were really struggling in that period of time, it brought me a sense of like deep peace and fulfillment, because it stopped me focusing on everything outside of me and actually made me focus on the internal world and the things that I can control. So I think, obviously we're not asking for a pandemic every year, but taking this time to connect with our internal world, while it might feel scary for some, is actually a huge catalyst for our growth in, you know, our outer world too. And I think if we were able to bake more of that time in, it would help escalate and accelerate our growth, even though it feels counterintuitive for many.
I think that's such an important point. I'm going to be redundant and say what you just said in slightly different words, but in total support of the idea that people seem to be afraid of themselves, of finding who they are, as if it's going to be a terrible, horrible, frightening experience, and it's going to crush them. Their spirit will be crushed by seeing how hollow and empty they are inside, and how they're bad people and they're weak people and they're not valuable people, and they're just, it's going to be bad. In fact, it's going to drive them crazy. They can't imagine being alone with themselves without something else to do to distract themselves, or they'll panic. They'll freak out. It'll just be beyond scary. It'll be the worst thing that could possibly happen. It's hard for me to, having not been that way at any point in my life, having always loved being able to go inside and see what was in there. It's hard for me to relate to that, but you're right. I talk to many people, smart people, people who are uneducated, people who are educated, people who are professionally successful. All kinds of people are afraid of going inside. It's hard for me to imagine how that happens, but I just want to assure our listeners, viewers, readers, however they're consuming our content here, it's the most wonderful thing that's possible. I just imagine, be open to the possibility that you're going to find that you're a terrific person, and that you're full of love, and you've got creative ideas, and you care about other people, and you've got so many promising things that are out there offering themselves to you that you're not taking advantage of, that you just brushed away, you didn't see the relevance of, but there are actually opportunities the universe is offering you, and is coming back and offering you again from a slightly different angle. And that didn't work either. Well, let's try this. Maybe this one will. That this whole life itself is magical. We don't admit that because the culture has decided it isn't. But the culture changes over time. It gets wiser sometimes, and other times it makes mistakes. Right now, we're in a period of having made the mistake of writing off the magic of life as being superstition and BS, and we're past all that stuff. That's, you can't get past it. It is us. We are consciousness. There's just one consciousness. We are part of it. That's all that exists. And of course, the rest of the consciousness is trying to take care of every part of itself. Why wouldn't it? It's self-interest. It's not crazy. So it's taking care of those of us who are crazy right now, even though we're only a little bit crazy, but we could get much crazier, and we're heading that way at the moment. But these are tiny flickers in the universe. The universe is basically very healthy and wonderful. And we're part of it. We're wonderful. We don't have to look at it in any other way. And if we spend time with ourselves, it will happen to us. We will realize that automatically. No effort involved, no work involved. Just let it happen. Let yourself be wonderful.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. And I think that is the scary piece, is letting that process happen, right? And you've shared that you've always enjoyed looking in your internal world and spending time with yourself. And I think that's amazing, because I know for me, I didn't always feel that way. And it was quite challenging for me at the beginning to take that time, because, and I'm not saying that it was a conscious decision, but I think the way that society is set up, it kind of doesn't bake in this time necessarily, unless you're intentional about it, to do the self-reflection. Because if you think about it, the structures that we have in place, you grow up, you're in childhood, you're with your parents, you're with your family, for me anyway, left school, went to university, you're again surrounded by peers, you meet a significant other, you settle down with them, so, and then you do the thing, you buy the house, you get married, whatever it is. So I can understand how it is possible to move through life without having this intentional time to really self-reflect and spend time with yourself, if you wanted to avoid it. And if you wanted, if you and actually, like, society kind of rewards, okay, great, you're married with kids and you're settled down, you've got the house, and like society kind of rewards those as key milestones, right? So when somebody says, oh, do you know what, I'm going to go off traveling, or I'm going to move country, or I'm going to take this solo trip, people kind of go, oh, what's wrong with you, right? Rather than actually recognize that for what it is, which is an amazing learning experience, and often one that some people are just not brave enough to do. So I know for me, like, the huge wake up and the introspective time was when I moved to America in 2017, and that was the first time in my life, like, I was just Natalie. I wasn't, a daughter or a sister, anything like this. I didn't know I didn't know anybody, right? So so with that loneliness came a lot of time of introspection. And what I will share is, for anybody that is, does feel like, oh my God, I just can't spend that much time alone, or I can't spend that much time in my own company. While the process is deeply uncomfortable, somewhere along the line, you actually start to enjoy it, and you actually start to discover more about yourself. And, in the world, things are always changing, right? The people that are in your life, the experiences, they say this, it's like the person you're going to be with your whole entire life, for sure, is yourself. So make yourself like the best partner, the best friend, like everything you need is in here. And I think, like, learning to enjoy your own company, enjoy your own space, enjoy your own time is key to living like a fulfilled and happy life, because then your happiness is not attached to anything outside of yourself. So while of course we all get attached to people, we love our families, we love our husbands, wives, partners, we love our kids, all these things, right? While of course, like, that's, this is healthy to become attached in some respects, right, to different people, but we are whole as an individual, and these others add to our life, right? They add to our life. So if we can get to a place that we actually enjoy ourselves, that for me is the bedrock and foundation for a happy and fulfilled life.
Socrates said that the unreflective life is not worth living. And what I say is, you have three choices. You have the rat race of emergency oversimplification procedure, which basically you're an imitative, conditioned robot who simply going along with all the stuff that's been pumped into you without filtering any of it out or wondering what you yourself think about those things. You never occurs to you. There's the self that you are is like just an observer watching the robot go through the life. That's one choice, is to just stay in that condition. You won't really have free will. Maybe at the moment of death, you'll look back and say, I wasn't authentic, I wasn't genuine, I wasn't doing it my way, like the Sinatra song. I wasn't doing it my way. I was doing it their way, whoever they are. And I've been just a pawn. And I don't know, I hope there's another life where I can do it the other way. Then the second choice is to be in the observer state, where you're conscious of every action you take and why you're taking it. Like most of your actions, when you first start to be in the observer state consciously, what you notice is most of what you're doing is automatic. It's all habitual. It's all conditioned, operant conditioning. You've been brainwashed like Pavlov's dog, and you're doing the same stuff over and over again. Somebody asks you a question, you give the answer you always give to that question. How many times have you said that? Like a million? You didn't stop to think about, how would I like to answer that question now? Really, honestly, if I forget history, clean my mind, start over from scratch. So if you practice the observer state, it becomes more of a habit in itself, but it's a positive habit that's getting you out of the time, shifting time away from EOP into the observer state. And in the clarity of the observer state, you'll find that everything in your life is more successful. Your relationships, your health, your strength, your vitality, your positive mood, your work, your rewards at work, awards that you get, awards, the things you create. They didn't ever have an idea you could be writing this or painting this or whatever, singing this, playing this music, whatever it is. You will be more effective than you were in EOP because your gifts will finally be able to come out, the things that make you unique in the universe. Mm-hmm. Each of us is totally unique. There's never a duplicate that's a perfect duplicate, identical DNA, identical environmental situation. It doesn't happen. Everyone is unique. It's precious. That's why the one consciousness is doing it this way, to have so many precious, unique things to be.
Yeah. I always say we're like puzzle pieces, right? And it needs each and every one of us in order to complete the puzzle, right? And we're all unique and we all have our own space, essentially. But often we all try and ram in the top right corner and say, yeah, I want to fit in here. So, but, when we're talking about observer mode there, right? The idea that, one can observe oneself, in daily life is, I think, great in theory, but a lot of people struggle to put that into practice. And it's here, I think, especially about high performers, right? Because, I know a lot of people in business, entrepreneurs, either high powered or high pressured leadership roles. And a lot of the time there is so much going on, right, in terms of just their responsibilities, and they are focused on going all the time. And I think sometimes, while they might consciously know, oh yeah, like I really should take some time to reflect, stop and think, right, they don't feel that they can, or if they do, they feel like it's slowing them down. It's like, oh well, the time I'm spending, say for instance, if they had a coaching session or they reflected on their week, well, this is time I could be executing, I could be pitching, I could be, you know, whatever the thing is. And I think high performers and likely a kind of audience that is listening to this right now, it maybe falls into that bucket of like high performing teams, high performing leaders. And I think it would be great if we can talk a little bit more about how they practically put this observation into their day-to-day without it feeling overwhelming, because we understand that, you know, you carry a lot of pressure and you carry a lot of responsibility, but somewhere along the line, like this feeling that actually slowing down is going to derail your objectives and derail what you need to execute. I want to kind of challenge that a little bit, because if you do have that thought, like, can you challenge yourself to understand, is it actually true? Or is it just that you are uncomfortable with the thought of slowing down? Because while you may say, like, oh, I'm happy with myself, I spend a lot of time with myself and I know who I am, are you actually comfortable with slowing down? Or do you have some kind of resistance to that? Because often when we pride ourselves on being high performers, I know I've done this before, it's like we can associate our worthiness with our productiveness and how much we can get done and how much we can achieve and accomplish. So I guess here it would be inviting some reflection on, like, is there actually a fear there around slowing down, and what makes you think or believe that it's actually going to be detrimental to your growth rather than a positive step towards your growth? Those were just points of reflection I just thought might be quite interesting for high performers that perhaps are listening.
Well, it's ironic because high performance comes from the flow state, which is the third choice, which only comes out of the observer state. I mean, there's a difference between high performance and getting a lot of quantity tasks done in a given day. So, you know, everybody's got a to-do list. And if you could check every box, you know, that was a good day. So I've got a to-do list too. And what I've learned is it's better for me to underpopulate my next day's to-do list, so that I can do things with quality, so I can really focus on them and do them at the highest possible level rather than do more of them at a lower level, and to allow for the fact that there's going to be stuff that happens that I couldn't have prepared for, so I have to leave room for the new things that are to come in that have to get done that day. And I totally agree with the idea of getting a lot done, being very productive, and as well as making it high quality at the same time. Quality includes making other people feel good. You know, it's, you know, doing things with empathy and consideration and tact and diplomacy and so on. That's part of high performance. It may not be identical with the number of tasks you can get done in a given period of time. One way to balance it is, particularly in the beginning, when, like, I can flip into or I'm always in, I'm not sure, observer state. And when I'm not, I can flip back in, and I can do that in a second. So it's not taking away from the action too much.
Mm-hmm.
Other people just starting to practice observer state won't find it that easy, but eventually they will. And in the beginning, what makes it easier is those key periods, other than the bathroom breaks and other than the it may be very difficult for people for, let's say, right after hearing us say these things, they want to try it. They may find it hard to do the 20 minutes a day thing at first. That may come in later, but everybody's got the time when they go to bed and when they wake up in the morning. Those are two key times that everyone can leverage. When the lights are out, your spouse, your dog, or whoever is next to you on the bed, or nobody's on the bed with you, whatever, you're there and nobody's bothering you. Nothing is distracting you. And you can look back over the day and see what you might have done better so that you can be prepared to do it better next time. And what are the clues that this kind of a situation will, like, what came before you screwed up today at X point? So look for that kind of a situation where the stuff that was happening right before you screwed up today seems to be happening again or might be happening again. So you can remember that next time, here's the way to handle it. So make those decisions. And then for tomorrow, you may not remember all the things you've got on your to-do list or your calendar for tomorrow, but the prominent ones that you are aware of course, what I do before I go to bed is I look at the calendar for tomorrow. So I have a real good idea of what's happening tomorrow, but it wasn't always that way. But I've always done this all my life, even when I didn't have a next day calendar. What's tomorrow look like? What are going to be the most fun times? What do I seem to be not so happy about that's happening tomorrow? And, do I have to do that, or is there a nice way to get out of it, or shouldn't I get out of it? It's just something that would be good for me to do, or that I, ought to be doing for some other person, or thinking out tomorrow and then picturing it happening the way I would love it to happen. This is the perfect way. And giving that set of clues to oneself so that tomorrow it can be perhaps, mental rehearsal has been proven to increase athletic performance. That's no longer just theory. That's proven scientific fact. Unquestionable fact. Nothing. Mental rehearsal is not a new thing. You can do that the night before. In the morning, you don't have to go through all that stuff all over again. Most important thing to do first thing in the morning is just to make sure that you've got a positive outlook. That's the most important setting for the day, that maybe you're looking forward to it. That's great. That's the way it should be. Maybe something about it has got you really terrified or scared or insecure. So don't get out of bed until you can turn that around and feel brave. Summon up the courage to say, look, here's the worst thing that could happen. How would I handle it if it happens? Okay. That's not so bad. I can deal with that. Besides, that's not going to happen. Here's what's going to happen. And then get out of bed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're sharing like two really intentional pockets in the day that all of us can utilize to our advantage. And, observation doesn't need to be something seen as an extra. It can be something that is done while we are brushing our teeth, getting ready for bed, getting up in the morning. It can coexist. But you also talk there about, higher quality of like tasks for you specifically, and, lower volume, right? So it's focusing on higher quality, but lower volume. And something inside me just clicked. And I was like, it's a bit similar with our thoughts, right? We want to have like a higher quality of thoughts running through our brain and a lower volume of all these other pieces of nonsense that come through our brain. And I think that that's something we like that might be actually quite tangible for people, because productivity isn't based on your volume, it's based on the quality. And I think it's the same with our internal worlds, right? Like, actually, like, our performance and our productivity is based on the quality of our thoughts, not the volume of them. And I think having or being intentional about the quality of our thoughts is going to really accelerate us in our growth and moving forward, especially for high performers where growth and constant improvement is the goal. So it just clicked in my mind when you said it. Like, we think a lot about that tangibly in our external worlds, about the output, but also the same is kind of true for the inputs that we put into our internal world as well.
Well said.
Mm-hmm. So we've spent quite a lot of time talking about, the hustle and, the busyness of our daily lives, and spending a lot of time in execution, right? And that is one end of the spectrum. There is also another end of the spectrum, right? Which sometimes, I'm not going to lie, I can be guilty of this, right? When you are thinking about thinking so much and you're in your internal world a lot, that it can also hinder us in our external world. And I know, especially in the spirituality space, and there may be some of those kind of people listening to this right now, there is so much focus on our inner worlds that we can, some people can be guilty of being the other end of the spectrum, right? And spending so much time with ourselves, understanding our thoughts, our limiting beliefs. And I know, obviously, coming and being in the coaching space, that's very prevalent with people that are, coaches. It's always this constant reflection. And sometimes I would argue that can hinder us too, because we can spend so much time inside our own heads that we don't spend the time grounding into the physical reality, because we are here for a human experience. And as much as you could be really introspective and spiritual and maybe be more in the ether than right here on earth, like, we are here for a human experience too. So I guess I wanted to talk about that as well, because I think sometimes, and I know I am definitely very, very introspective, it can be guilty of, like, almost being more comfortable being in our internal world. So for those of us that have really, enjoyed the process of getting to know ourselves and spending time with ourselves and making ourselves our own best friend, that can almost feel so comfortable to be in that space. It's almost a safe cocoon, right? And the outside world can actually feel like, oh God, I'm gonna have to human, right? And that can feel challenging to people too. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that too, because I know there's also people at that end of the spectrum as well, and how being introspective and reflective is obviously an amazing thing, but how to kind of move up the scale a little bit and ground some of those realizations of the internal world into the physical as well, because that, I know, can sometimes be uncomfortable or challenging for people.
Well, the ancient spiritual scriptures are aware of this, and there have been these traditions of sadhus who walk around naked in the forest and live off the land and don't have contact with other human beings, live in a cave in Tibet and stuff like that. And the spiritual advice is that it's perfectly valid if you want to spend the entire incarnation just working on yourself. It's also perfectly valid if you want to spend the incarnation out helping the rest of humanity. You have to decide which is more the way you want to or feel that you're called to live this life, which is your mission. And most of us are not, most of the people I know are not people who want to live in a cave, particularly since we're in the West, Western society. In the East, it's much more common for there to be the reclusive hermit working on themselves for a lifetime, or for 20, 30 years before coming back into the society. So, I think most of us in the West feel that we're social animals. We want to be part of this. We want to socialize. We love other people. We wouldn't like being alone forever. We like the company. And, to some extent, you could say the universe at one point made the same decision. Gee, I could be alone for eternity. That would be my natural state. And I could just keep myself amused forever because I'm a genius and I could think it's a lot of fun. But would I rather do that or have some company? I think I'd rather have some company, a lot of company. And I'll be the company too, because I'll be inhabiting them. And some of them won't even know they're me for a while. That'll be fun too. And we'll see what happens.
Yeah. Yeah, I like to think of these different kind of extremes, right? Because I like to think of these extremes not necessarily as individuals. And sure, yes, there are individuals that never want to go out, see anybody or do anything, right? And then there's also people that want to go constantly. But I like to see these states more as seasons of our being, right? Because I know for me, I've had seasons, for instance, the pandemic, where very, very introspective, but then also seasons where it is much more external, right? It's the external world, it's doing, it's grounding into physical reality. And I think probably for most people, they will be similar. There will have been times where they've been more introspective, and then there'll be times that they are more, extroverted and out there and contributing externally into the world. And so I guess wanted to lead into this, that those seasons are actually part of growth and are all necessary parts of the cycle. And we started this talking about moving into spring, and I don't think we are separate to nature. We are part of nature, right? And we too have similar cycles to nature, and not saying that our individual growth cycles always align with the seasons of the year. They're very individualistic, and there can be times where we have really long periods of winter seasons where we are introspective and we are spending time with ourselves. But then that's normally followed by a period of growth or expansion in the physical world, right? And growth is secular, and these extremes of our internal and external world, they're kind of part of a growth cycle. And I know for me anyway, once you start to recognize these seasons, they become a lot easier to adapt and work with, because we can spend a lot of time fighting our own internal cycles of like nature, right? So it's like being a plant in winter, being like, no, I don't want to die, right? Like it's we can spend so much of our energy, and rather than be like, do you know what? It's winter, time to go in, and guess what? The spring will come again, the sun will shine again, and there will be time to come out. And it is through that winter season of growth that we prepare essentially for that next season, for that next year. And these cycles, your growth cycles, they could be over long periods of time. They could even be in the matter of months or weeks. You can notice, oh, well, I'm feeling more drawn to slow down and be introspective. But I think really it's about tuning in to your individual cycle and your own needs, and honoring that rather than trying to force your body or your mind to do something that it just isn't in season to do right now. So I think really what I'm surmising and concluding to is that it's individualistic and everybody's seasons look different, but to be in tune with what season of growth you're in right now.
Very sound advice. It's the function of the mind called intuition. There is the hunches that we get and the inner guidance that we're getting. It's subtle and we can miss it, particularly if we're in go, 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 go mode. But, that's good advice because it'll let our listeners begin to listen to themselves, listen more carefully to the small voices that aren't shouting in the mind. Underneath all the shouting and the noise, there's a signal from themselves, and that signal will be right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think there's a difference as well between the mind and the body, right? Because the mind might want to go, but the body wants to slow down, right? And this is where we need to use the mind and body and ensure they're in sync, because we can want to go because that's like an ego driven thought. Well, I want to be out there, I want to be performing, I want the accolades, the awards, all that kind of stuff, right? I want that. And everybody loves summer. Who doesn't love being out there and doing their thing, right? And I don't hear of many people saying, yay, I love the winter, right? But I think it's about aligning the mind and body, because sometimes our ego can want to go, but our body wants to rest, and vice versa, right? So maybe we want to rest, but our body is telling us it's time to go. So, and I think, just with the turning of the seasons right now, for anybody that is feeling that their own intuition is telling them that now is the time to move and be more like in the external world or be more in the internal world, whatever it is for you. I think it's about honoring that, because the body knows the way, but often our mind can try to overrule it. But that's normally I'm just seeing like a child stomping its foot, like, no, I want this now. But it's about honoring the season that you're in.
That part of the mind, the ego, is EOP. That's the emergency oversimplification procedure, the robot that's been trained to want to prove itself and achieve and overperform and impress other people, and is attached to that outcome. And it's good for you to suggest directing oneself to the messages coming from one's own body, which I remember has come up in previous conversations. And the reason I say that is because if a person does focus on what are the signals coming from the body, it opens up the doorway to the intuition to flow through that moment of contact. It's hard to think about what the intuition is. It's easy to think about what the body is. So yeah, tune into your body and that'll bring you the intuition.
Yeah. And you will feel it. You will feel your energy levels, right? You will feel it if you're wanting to go, but something inside you, your body saying, nope, not now. Like, listen to that. And vice versa, if you're feeling the energy build and it's telling you it's time to go, it's time to get out there, listen to that too. So I know we're kind of coming to the end of our time today, Bill, but thank you again for another fascinating discussion. And listeners, we hope that you have taken something away from this, in that we've covered, our internal worlds and our external worlds, and how we can bridge and master the two to help accelerate our growth in a way that is in tune with our bodies and the seasons that we're in, and not being scared to go inward and have those winter seasons, but also embracing and enjoying those summer and external seasons as and when they come. So, really peak performance is about mastering the two extremes and both worlds. And if we can meet somewhere in the middle, that's normally where excellence and peak performance is found. So, Bill, any closing thoughts before we leave our wonderful listeners here today?
Well, I think you've just summed it all up very neatly. We're talking about balance as opposed to going to extremes. That solves a lot. We need that. We need that message, balance. Balance in the middle, not the extremes. The extremes are not good for us. The balance in the middle.
Yeah. And I'm sure there's another topic in there for next time, all about balance. It's already like thoughts are kind of already percolating in my brain for our next topic. So thank you everyone for listening and being with us here today. We will join you again next month for episode 21. We'll see you then.
Looking forward to it.
Bye-bye.
Bye. 7 minutes.